I'm Ariana, and my business is Lloyd Collective. That's probably how you heard about this. And this every month we do these fundraisers, and they're generally for therapists or for some kind of practitioner who works directly with other people. And the goal is to create community, to center around values that really lead towards liberation, or any work around anti-racism principles or principles that really understand systems and our place within them and how we can make them much, much better. And we always do these workshops for free. And then we do a donation. And my company, my business matches the donation. And we'll do that in the middle of the training. And today we have Dr. Karen Hickson here. And I'm going to let her introduce herself because she knows herself a lot better than I do.
Well, I
All
just
right,
want to
thanks.
welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Ariana, and to your business, Lloyd Collective, for hosting these. I think it's awesome to get clinicians together and think together and connect, and of course, donate is so important. And I hope you're all taking good care of yourselves in this time, during the multiple layers of trauma, oppression, injustice, and the occasional bright spot. So I'm looking forward to raising some money for Color of Change, and I'll tell you more about me. I know some of you, which is lovely. Nice to see some familiar faces, but those of you who I haven't met, I'm really glad to meet you. I have been a counselor in Portland since 2002, really focusing on, radical work, anti-oppression, social justice work. And I am a supervisor as well and a facilitator, and I consider myself kind of a community-based educator. I didn't go into academia, but I'm out here in the community educating counselors and clinicians and peers and anyone who wants to do good work. So a little bit about my social location. I am white, cis, married, and a child-free woman. I use she, her pronouns. Grew up working class in southwestern Pennsylvania, but I am currently highly educated and definitely middle class. And I would say that I'm a nerd and study a lot of different things in the realm of what Ariana mentioned regarding liberation, but I study power. That is what my dissertation was on at Oregon State, power in the therapeutic relationship. And I study critical theory, anti-racism, and abolition, all very important to our current world. So really glad to hang out with you all, and just really glad to share a little bit with you about my journey of becoming a sort of relational yet technical proficient clinician in this world we're living in. And so I am going to chat with you about how to be radical but still do good work, and how to be flexible but still do good work. And I'm excited to kind of have that chat with you and hear what you're thinking after I share. And I know that you all have excellent information and knowledge to share, so I'm looking forward to hear what you all have to say as well, so that this is a collaborative, co-created conversation. And since I'm going to be talking about evidence-based practices and like manualized treatments and protocols, I wanted to share with you what kind of evidence-based practices that I use. And I wanted to share that I use narrative exposure therapy for trauma processing, which I just mentioned that Sarah is training in now. And I use interpersonal and social rhythm therapy for bipolar spectrum disorders, which some of you may have heard of. And I also use the unified protocol for the transdiagnostic treatment of emotional disorders. So lots of acronyms in there, lots of fancy names, but really just some evidence-based treatments for different things clients need support with. And, I've been on a 19-year journey in my career to figure out how to balance being a relational and social justice oriented clinician while still doing good work and helping clients. And so I'm going to just talk to you about that.
Hey,
So,
Karen, I'm going to interject really quickly just to let people know that we're recording this so people can see it at a later date. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can just turn your camera off.
yes, thank you so much.
Oh, and Sarah's asking if we can get those acronyms at the end of the chat.
Yes, definitely. I'll share acronyms, and I'll share the resources I'm going to use for this talk, like the books and the quotes. I'll put all those in the chat when I'm done chatting. So being a psychotherapist in the modern age requires that we are focused on an outrageous list of tasks that I know a lot of you are familiar with. We have to think about informed consent, paperwork, HIPAA compliance, medical necessity if we take insurance. We have to learn all these evidence-based practices, think about treatment plans, billing, electronic health records, continuing education. And you all know that I could go on, right? Like the list is long of the things that we need to think about as clinicians. In the book, Saving Talk Therapy by Enrico Gonaldi, he shares, quote, now more than ever, there's pressure for therapists to conform to bureaucratic protocol, which if not actively resisted can result in substandard clinical care. Ironically, therapists are instructed to follow many procedures that are considered commensurate with being an ethical professional, but which over prioritize can lead to unethical behavior with clients in the human sense, end quote. So additionally, we have to sort through hundreds of evidence-based practices, manualized treatments, and new modalities to figure out how to assist our clients in working through their struggles. And some of us clinicians, whether we work in schools, substance abuse, private practice, community mental health, or if we work as peers or case managers, regardless, some of us are really purely relational in our work. And some of us are very dedicated to evidence-based protocols or manualized treatments. And you'll see that sometimes on our Facebook groups, these kind of debates that can kind of come up. For me, I sort of fancied myself as a purely relational clinician when I started my career. But I realized a few years in that people don't always feel better without a specific intervention or modality. And so that really shifted my thoughts about how to integrate some of the scholarly research-based work in our field. And as my women's studies teacher taught me, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I started a journey of being more, I would say, integrated. And I guess the struggle is also stated really well by a British psychoanalyst, Adam Phillips, who was recently quoted in an article about the new therapy app craze that has kind of taken over since the pandemic has surfaced. And Adam Phillips states, it would be clearly naive for psychotherapists to turn a blind eye to science or to be against scientific methodology. But the attempt to present psychotherapy as a hard science is merely an attempt to make it a convincing competitor in the marketplace. It's a sign, in other words, of a misguided wish to make psychotherapy both respectable and servile to the very consumerism it is supposed to help people deal with, end quote. So at the end of the day, I know that the relationship in our work, no matter where we're working, and the therapeutic alliance are the most important factors, especially our empathy, towards our clients. In the healing connection, one of my theoretical orientations is relational cultural theory. So Jean Baker Miller and Irene Stiver state in their book, The Healing Connection, that the phenomenon of empathy is basic to all our relationships. Either we deal with the feelings that are inevitably present in our interactions by turning towards each other, or we turn away. And if we turn away from others without conveying a recognition of the existence of their feelings, we inevitably leave the other person diminished in some degree. We are also inevitably turning away from engaging fully with our own experience and dealing with it in a less than optimal way. And that is in isolation, end quote. So we're here to sort of talk about the idea that all structured approaches can be enhanced rather than weakened by our relationality, and that the reverse may be also true, is that our efforts to be relational and support our clients may also be enhanced by specific treatments. And so there's that balance there, or that fence, or that tension we're holding as clinicians. And we live in a time with really increased need for mental health care, and this is going to continue as late-stage capitalism, the climate crisis, and ongoing structural and interpersonal violence continues. We're seeing the increased need in mental health care already. And the powers that be really want us to be more efficient, right? They want us to do short-term work. They want us to reduce symptoms. They want us to not use the CPT code 90837 too much. They want us to have a golden thread and a treatment plan and a clear direction for addressing symptoms that ultimately results in the prognosis of no longer needing therapy. And, you know, that itself is hard for me as a long-term client myself, having, you know, been in therapy for more than 20 years and currently with my current therapist for more than 12 years, almost weekly or biweekly, that I don't really believe that psychotherapy is like a short-term deal, you know, but we have these competing pressures. So my thoughts are that we want to push back on symptom management only. We want to push back on that model of psychotherapy, and we want to honor the art and the magic of the work that you all are contributing. And we want our clients, you know, to feel that healing connection of the relationship. And sometimes clients need a bit more than the relationship to work through something. And so really, we're talking about this idea that it's the therapeutic alliance you have with the client and that relational presence, plus it might be at times a very specific way of addressing the issues. And I don't want us to forget that both of those pieces are there. And sometimes you need just the relationship, and sometimes you need the relationship plus a little something. So I'm going to be working with these 3 questions going forward. 1, how do we use evidence-based practices or manualized treatments in a flexible way? 2, how do we acknowledge the context of the client's life, identities, and the culture we live in and that they live in within a manualized approach, especially when these approaches haven't considered the nuances of our clients' identities, their life experiences, and the socio-political structures that are marginalizing them or impacting their well-being. So we know that evidence-based approaches sometimes don't consider the complexity and the diversity of our clients. Some of the treatments are in fact very centered in white supremacy, actually, at times. And 3, how do we maintain our personal therapeutic values when we are implementing a treatment? So how do we show up with evidence-based practices or manualized treatment with relationality and justice at the center? So 1, my thoughts are, and I'm sure you all have your own thoughts about this and would be glad to hear them, be flexible. Use the tools, manuals, protocols with flexibility without caving to the client's avoidance. Of course, avoidance is normal in our clients. I do trauma processing, so avoidance can be a very big feature of that. But what are the client's needs in the moment in this session? Recently, I was doing a narrative exposure therapy session with one of my clients, and we had planned to discuss some homework that we co-created in the last session. And when my client came to session, she showed up and she said immediately, as many guilty clients do, I didn't do it. And I was like, okay. So you have many choices. Like when a client doesn't do the homework or follow through, you know, do you pathologize them? Do you assume there's likely a good reason this is happening? You know, do you connect with the idea that the homework might not have felt resonant, even if it was directly negotiated with the client? And on that night, I said to myself, I got to investigate whatever this avoidance is and whatever's coming up for the client. And it allowed us to have a breakthrough, to connect some important dots surrounding the client's trauma history and how current events were impacting their trauma processing. And if I would have pressured the homework or assumed avoidance or pathologized the client, I would have missed such an important piece of the puzzle, and I might have even damaged the alliance with the client, right? And so flexibility is key, but so is staying focused on the treatment that you and the client have negotiated and finding that sweet spot between those. The magic and the art of psychotherapy and the relationship that's formed between client and clinician can never really be managed through a strict protocol. So maintain flexibility. Number 2, stay aware. Maintain awareness of your power. That's something that's important to me as I study that. Sometimes therapists are interested in dismissing or diminishing their power, and sometimes they're over invested in power. So being aware of the client's identities and layers of their identities, being aware of the nuances that are surfacing in the therapeutic relationship, and especially of possible ruptures in the alliance. So ruptures in the therapeutic alliance might surface as something like a client withdrawing from treatment, shutting down, canceling sessions, or a client confronting you openly with something that they're dissatisfied with. So staying aware of those. And also, most importantly, especially in the context of us being here together to focus on liberation and justice and donating to Color of Change, staying aware and naming with the client that there are many, many, many factors, external, political, oppressive forces that are impacting their mental health. And so this means staying aware that this is a contextualized process, that we are not individually pathologizing clients and assuming that that pathology exists within the individual, but that it exists in a broad array of layers that the client is living in. And so staying aware that the manualized approach will not fix everything, like absolutely not. And it may alleviate symptoms and that may have been impacting them. And that will be amazing and helpful because they will be able to then move forward with their goals and their values and be able to be in more solidarity with other people. But staying present with the reality that many of our clients are impacted by daily ongoing oppressive forces, and their wellness is not permanent. Their wellness is not guaranteed given the current status of our life world. So if you can stay aware and stay contextual, embedded, and aware of the forces that are impacting your clients from the outside, all around, I think that enhances that awareness of relationality and justice while trying to do good work. Do work to become a politicized counselor that is aware of oppressive systemic forces. I think that conversation has come up a lot more in the last 4 to 5 years, where counselors have been forced to start talking more directly about the political climate. And, many people have been doing that all along, and some people are very new to that idea. I mean, everyone is welcome. And just maintaining awareness that the strong forces of things like white supremacy that impact the work we do, the way we show up, the symptoms clients have, the relationship. Really what we're talking about here with point number 2 is to maintain awareness of all of these forces. Number 3 is retaining your own therapeutic values. We are all unique and different, and so are our clients. And so retain your everything when you're doing manualized approaches. Be you, like weave your way of working into the model, the worksheet, the manual. Use your own vocabulary and that shared history between yourself and the client. Call upon that history, remind them of the changes they've made, and use appropriate therapeutic humor too, like be yourself. And be honest about the complexity of the work, which includes also being honest about what the work can do and what the work cannot do. In closing on that point, just be yourself inside the protocol that you're using. So in conclusion, and we can keep talking together after this, if we're going to retain that art and that magic of psychotherapy, our work cannot be reduced to purely providing evidence-based practices or manualized treatments. We must retain the relational connection and our awareness that there are larger oppressive forces impacting our clients' mental health. So we can't just fix it with individualized symptom reduction approaches. And for our clients and our field to thrive, therapy cannot be reduced to mere symptom reduction. And we must push back on that as the goal and place it as merely one part of the work, or even as just the beginning of the work. One more time, a little quote from the relational cultural theorists. Equal in importance to clinical training and academic preparation for therapy is an understanding of the larger relational context in which therapy occurs. Our relational view leads us to a new perspective, a different concept about therapy's connection to the larger world. In our view, both patient and therapist have developed within a culture that has deprived us all of fully growth-fostering relationships. But they are coming together to try to create something different, something that runs counter to the damaging effects of the larger society. Both patient and therapist are engaged in a creative act of healing and empowerment. And it is a part of the larger effort of trying to understand deeply how our surrounding conditions affect us all. End quote. So thank you for being here with me, and thank you for listening. And Ariana, if you want to lead us into some Q&A or some comments,
thanks
open
so
to hearing.
Karen. So I'm going to have us pause for donations, and then we're going to do some Q&A with Karen.
Great.
And let me just share my screen really quickly here. And hopefully you can't hear the cartoons in the background over here.
Cartoons are totally great.
Yeah, they are. They're fun. Okay. So let me just show you. Okay. So the way the community donations work, we do these workshops and trainings for free. And we pick an organization and ask you to make a donation of any amount. And then if you'll private message me the amount, then my business Lloyd Collective matches. So here's Color of Change. I don't think you can click on it. So I'll put it in the chat box, but I did want you to see here. Let me see. Will someone just type that in the chat box so I can show the next screen? Oh, I did want to tell you too, actually, Color of Change is a huge organization. They're a nonprofit and they're basically a media company, and they work really hard to make good quality media that changes the culture with the goal of changing politics. If you have time, I'd say check out their Facebook page, check out their website. They have a beautiful website, and look at the messages they're trying to spread. As I was thinking about it tonight, I was thinking about this recent interaction I had with my family. I have an enormous family, and we all have very different opinions. And we were sitting around, who knows when, in the last 6 months somewhere, and we were debating these different ideas. And my one brother was just like, "You guys are all just regurgitating information." And it's true, that's what we do. We just walk around kind of spitting out the same things that we've heard with their own ideas, embedded in it, but we are so susceptible to all the information we hear. And we can't undervalue that and how then decisions are made based on that. So that's why I wanted to choose Color of Change. And also, thanks, Alan, for putting the link in. And also, especially in light of the trial of Derek Chauvin and the verdict, and in honor of George Floyd, and also in prevention of how things can go forward. So while you're making donations, I'm going to be adding them up. And I also wanted to share my screen briefly and show you this other thing. So we do these workshops every month, and we started doing them in December. So I wanted you to see the work that we as a community have done together, and just how much of a difference we can make just by doing little small things. So in December, we donated to Join, which hopefully you all know, it's a really radical housing organization in Portland. In January, it was our biggest month. We did Black Resilience Fund, which was started by Cameron Witten, and it's part of Brown Hope in Portland. And they do really great mutual aid work for the Black community. February, we did Unite Oregon, which works a lot on immigrant services. March, my speaker was from Michigan. So we did Ruth Ellis Center, which focuses on queer Black youth in the Detroit area. And then, of course, this is April. And then let's see, what have I got? Okay, next month's fundraiser is with Lindsay Bryan Tobin. She is a multicultural therapist who focuses on financial therapy And she's going to be teaching us about some of the financial basics of private practice. That's what she specializes in. So I think the next slide, yes. So Karen, would you share with us some of the ways people could continue to work with you if they'd like to? And then we'll move, yeah.
Yeah, I am really open to one-time consultation if people have any clinical concerns, especially in regards to integrating social justice and awareness of whiteness and anti-racism into the work. And I also have a couple trainings coming up in the fall, a 30-hour clinical supervision training. And I do have another cohort of narrative exposure therapy training coming up. And I'll put my website in the chat. And yeah, and I also do supervision and other sorts of things. So and if any questions come up, feel free to email me if you're not certain if I can help you, or if you have a question about anything tonight. Love to hear from anyone. Thanks.
Thank you. And then I'm going to share very briefly. Actually, I'll do that, and then I'll go back to calculating numbers. Okay. I wanted to share very briefly, my business, Lloyd Collective, focuses on making differences in the community. And I really strongly believe in more people getting into private practice, especially if you have values that focus on liberation work, you're aware of your power and privilege, and you're seeking to provide services in a meaningful way. And you yourself are seeking to be liberated by the work you do instead of be oppressed by systems that are in place providing the services, because that just, if your system is oppressing you, you're going to really struggle to empower the people you're serving despite your best efforts. I don't want to discourage anyone by that, but mostly just that I want more people in private practice, and especially folks who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, immigrants, or refugees. So my organization is Lloyd Collective. And just very briefly, because I want us to be able to move into Q&As here. My main thing that I do is I have an 8-week private practice program, and you go through the entire process of setting up your therapy practice. And we focus on liberation values. The more I do this work, the more I know how to incorporate those, and making your practice very inclusive and an asset to your community, but also an expression of what I feel each of us have inside, which my sense is that we all have a vision or something internal that really needs to be brought forth in an important way. And so that's what I do, is this 8-week program. My next cohort starts May 10th, and we'll meet every Monday for a few hours. And in between, you're going to be doing 8 to 10 hours of work. So it's intensive, it's fast, and it's really fun. If you're interested in the next cohort, you're welcome to message me, and I'll send you a link for the application. And with that said, let's see if there are questions and answers. And with whatever time we have left, we're going to talk about using some of the principles Karen talked about in building a business. Mm-hmm. So if you have a question, you're welcome to raise your hand in the chat box, or just, we're a smaller group, so you're welcome to just say it.
Comments are great too.
Yeah, comments are good too. Yeah. Or resources or things like that.
I would just be curious to hear about within the array of evidence-based practices, like your journey, or others, if they want to share, of finding those that really fit for you within that value system. And so, yeah, I'll just leave it there for now.
Callie, I think that is a great question, because Sarah knows this because I shared this with them. I went on a journey to figure out what trauma treatment I wanted to use with my clients. And I started out probably in 2003 doing level 1 EMDR training. And I used it for a year or two and I didn't like it. I couldn't get there with it. I couldn't feel comfortable with it. And I was trained in cognitive processing therapy as well as prolonged exposure therapy. Those two didn't really fit either. And so it was like a journey for me to find narrative exposure therapy, which is a very radical treatment that was not created with white folks at the center, that was created you know, with refugees, child soldiers, and folks who are surviving war and conflict in other countries. And so it just really strongly aligned with my social justice values. And so I wouldn't have discovered that if I hadn't gone to school where I went for my PhD. I mean, I might have figured it out at some point, but it was just a journey of like trying things and finding things and listening to in general, it's like finding the people who are doing the good work and seeing what they're doing and seeing how it fits for you. Because even if you like something yourself, it doesn't mean you're going to like doing it as a clinician. I think that it's a journey, and I think you have to be curious, and I think you have to try things. And I tried 3 or 4 trauma treatments before I felt really comfortable doing trauma processing. And I'm really grateful for figuring that out, but it did took 10 years to find that. So thanks, Callie. Anyone else has thoughts about that, please chime in.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's hard to find practices that are not created by white people and mostly tested on white people.
Yeah, and it not all, we could have a whole critique of evidence-based practices and positivism and science and in the way things are tested. But the reality is there's lots of good stuff out there, but you have to engage it with that contextual approach, and I have found that to be the most useful way to practice for me, is to always embed it into that context. And so, some things work better than others. Some things are easier than others to adapt to your style. But I think there's a lot of great things our field has come up with, but I don't always agree with the way they're put out there. And I don't always agree with the rigidity in the way that they're put out there. And I really appreciate flexibility as a clinician. But again, I think our clients need specific things sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they need some kind of container.
Yeah, for different things. Yeah. Any other questions or?
Yeah, any other questions that come up around this? So what I heard you say, Karen, was be flexible without caving to the avoidance of the client. That was the first point. The second one was to be aware, and that includes a lot, like aware of identities, nuances of identities, layers, the dynamic, power, context. So all of that good stuff. And then you're retain yourself within it. Like, don't kind of erase yourself in the process.
Yep.
Yeah. So know what your values are, and then deliver the services through your voice, with your vernacular, with your style.
Mm-hmm. Be yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Be yourself.
Kira, nice to see you. Oh, I think it's hold on a second.
She's okay. Saying no. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great to see you anyway.
Don't make her talk. Don't do
Maybe
it.
That wave was a hello.
Lovely. I have a question, Karen.
Sure.
And I'm not sure, it's, I guess, like towards a question. I don't know if I have it nailed down.
Great.
But I'm only like a year in as a therapist working in community mental health. And I think one of the things you mentioned about the symptom management and how it's that being the only goal is maybe not a quality approach. I think something that like I'm trying to navigate is just that within the system of like a Medi-Cal system, or it, when all the documentation is focused on symptom management, like what messages are we giving to clients and to families through assessments, and then through like client plans, which are focused on symptom management, because that's what's needed for the insurance documentation, right? And how to navigate. I can say, you know, I can give my disclaimers in processing or reviewing like documentation, but like the documentation stays, you know, like my words will go, but the words on the paper will stay. So it's just something that I'm kind of navigating, like that balance and trying to, yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts or if others have thoughts on how they navigate that or have in the past.
Oh, Joaquin, I think that was a beautifully stated, complex observation and lots of questions in there, and I appreciate it. And I think the systems that we work in are quite oppressive, actually, and they have probably gone in the wrong direction in terms of efficiency. And I treat therapists too, and I started out in community mental health myself at Tualatin Valley Centers, which is now LifeWorks. And I just worked with an outpatient mental health therapist who has 105 clients on their caseload. So, I mean, we can't provide anything but symptom management probably to 105 clients on our caseload. And so I personally believe we've made a ton of mistakes in how we've gone forward in this field, and community mental health is not innovated in the 20 years that I've been a clinician. And that is sad to me. And I think that one of my biggest disappointments about community mental health is there's not time to do trauma processing in community mental health when many of the clients actually need trauma processing. And we talk a big game about being trauma informed, but the most trauma informed thing we could do is actually offer trauma treatment. So, Joaquin, there's a bunch of beautiful folks like yourself who are there trying to hold that complexity of like, I'm working in a system and I got to do it this way, but I'm going to try to be like a rad human when I'm in the room with my client, you know, and I'm going to document how the hell I need to. And I'm going to, you know, I'm going to do good work and I'm going to document it, and I'm going to please Medi-Cal, or I'm going to please OHP in Oregon. And I'm going to do what I can to help the clients while I'm with them. But I think it's very tough that we live in a two-tiered mental health system. We have the public system and we have the private system, and that distributes care differently. And that is a very intense part of our field. And so I just empathize completely with your struggle. And I wish we were going in a different direction with community mental health. And I worry that it will become completely unsustainable for people to actually get psychotherapy in community mental health. And it's just going to become, yeah, I mean, there's so much we could talk about. And, but I appreciate your question and I appreciate you wrestling with it. And I think that it's still important to be in these systems and do good work and try to eke out a bit of change and humanity and connection where we can and push back where we can. But feels like the path has been forged, you know, in terms of how community mental health and OHP and insurance companies want us to work. So yeah, there's a lot to say, but I appreciate it.
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, iPhone setting. Sorry about that. It's really good to see you too, Karen. And my question is about the portion. Sorry, I got to pick up a kiddo. Hold on.
Yeah.
My question is about the portion of your kind of prong number 2 about awareness. As a clinician, kind of having. This is Sylvie. She can't hear us. She can hear me, not you. Having awareness about some of the political events and cultural goings on is both for folks in positions of privilege. You can have less awareness just because of who you are and what's safe for you and your family, and for folks who are in communities affected by racialized trauma. There's a lot of vicarious trauma and wounding that goes along with that awareness. And so I'm curious about your thoughts about how to cultivate awareness without living in a dark black hole as a clinician that is going to just keep you pulled into like how much pain and suffering there is with no ability to kind of make change in those areas when you're doing the individual work with people.
Oh, Kira.
Yeah.
Like,
solve all my problems.
well, they're my problems too. So I resonate deeply with your complicated question. And I feel like as a long-term activist and organizer, it's been very difficult to maintain an individual therapy practice when there are so many systems I want to change. And I try to balance that work and do that systems change work where I can. And I don't think a lot of the things that are thrown at us, like self-care or none of that shit is the answer. Self-care is just embedded. Yes, we have to take care of ourselves, of course. I mean, of course, we have to be in some kind of shape to do this work. But the reality is I live in two worlds. I live in a world of like hope, continuing to do all the work that I do as a counselor, a supervisor, an activist, a facilitator of anti-racist work. And I live in a place of despair as well. So I just balance those two worlds a lot every day of my life. And I would say that Tuesday was a hard fucking day for a lot of reasons. And yeah, I'm just in that every day. My partner and family who are actually here could tell you about that, that tension. I think that we just can't, and it's another place we have to hold complexity, that we have to keep going and we have to keep fighting, and we have to like face the reality of the systems that we live in and how they are harming so many people. And so I don't have an answer, but I know that I wrestle and I struggle, and I surround myself with people who get it and who are like willing to be in despair with me and support me in that, and in hope and in solidarity with the people that we're fighting for and with. And I just try to cultivate connection with people who are not gonna tell me that they don't watch the news, because I don't really want to hear that, right? And I also, you know, try to have active hope by continuing the work in all the ways. And so, I don't know. I'm in it with you. I'm in it with all of you. Like, zero answers. But I know that doing larger systems work has helped me sustain my career, being able to speak to therapists and like support them and influence them, and not just one client in my office, has been extremely valuable to me. And to have strong community in Portland, and, you know, to be on the streets when needed, and to be reading. Honestly, one of the things I'm doing right now, Kira, to manage that balance is, you know, reading a lot of intense, like, critical theory to like keep in my brain inspired that there are pathways forward. So thank you for the beautiful question.
Any other questions? So I wanted to say that all of you together donated 407. We got a very random number. So then with the matching donations, we raised 814 for Color of Change.
Awesome.
So I do think that's one way we make changes, is by directing our dollars and our power where people are having an even bigger impact than we do in our one-on-one work. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a small thing at all.
No.
Yeah. So I wanted to say, let's see, we've got 10 minutes. I'm going to say a few things about building some of this into your business structure, and then we'll wrap up. But if you have other questions for Karen, please ask. Okay. Yeah, if you're not sure how to donate, you can go to colorofchange.org, and then you can private message me that amount. and then I'll match it. Okay. So what I wanted to share was when you're building your business, when you're building your private practice, or if you have one and you're running it, there are things that you can do that either reinforce the systems that are currently in place, or there are things that you can do that uproot it and create something new and something liberal and liberation oriented instead. And one of the biggest pieces that I've found is helpful, and I should say, I'm constantly learning and growing in this area, and I don't think any of us have all the answers, especially if we were raised in this culture, in this country, and especially if our skin color is white and we've been given a lot more privilege. But I do think that it's an ongoing process anyway, because the needs of the people around us change, the climate and the culture changes. But one thing with having a business and running your business, a huge piece of it is getting really good ongoing consultation from a diverse set of business owners or people who can consult on not just on your clinical services, but on your business practices. So have people look at your website, have people give you feedback on the numbers you're charging, have people give you feedback on the informed consent document, which holds basically all of your business policies, and have them be different business backgrounds. Don't have just therapists giving you feedback on your therapy business. Have it be, researchers in biology or people in the tech world or people with completely different cultural or racial or ethnic backgrounds, and do that constantly. If you could do it every week, that's ideal, because it's just like with therapy, where the more insular you are, your quality goes down, your own awareness goes down, your accountability goes down. And even though it's quite painful to have somebody looking at our work, we do better work when we open ourselves up to that vulnerability. So the same thing with your business practices. If you haven't had somebody with different identities check out your website yet and give you feedback, that's a good place to start. So that's one main thing I wanted to communicate. And if you're not sure where to get services like that, there's SCORE, which is through the Small Business Administration, and they'll connect you with a free business mentor. And there's also another one. What's it? Well, there's Meso Portland.
Mhm.
Do you know that one, Karen?
Yeah, Miso. They're just like a micro business
Yes.
prize support.
There's that. Yep. And then there's Mercy Corps will do that. And there's another really good organization that's not coming to mind right now. But even if you just Googled like different supports like that, you'll find them in Portland. There's a ton. So that's one thing I wanted to share. Another piece I really wanted to share was, oh, thanks, Stacey, was creating strong relationships and having the relationships extend within your business practices. So it's not that you're warm and have unconditional positive regard in the room, but then your client misses an appointment and you're like, sorry, asshole. Like, it has to like extend so that there's strong relationships across all of your business practices. And that takes some vulnerability on your part, because it means you've looked at your business practices and there's a reason for them, and you know the values that they uphold, and you're willing to kind of talk through it with people. That's something I found really helpful. I read a lot of Adrienne Marie Brown, and she talks about the value of strong relationships, the value of not ever working in isolation, and the value of, I think I shared this last month too, this concept of a foot wide and a mile deep, versus what happens in community mental health is things are a mile wide, but only a foot deep. So taking the time to build relationships with your clients that will hold up around all of your business practices, from when they do their first consultation on the phone, to when they're paying the bill, to when they have a no-show, to when you're terminating or transferring them to someone who's a better fit. And then the third thing that I really wanted to add is especially if you're a white clinician and a white business owner, the importance of studying narcissism. And I know how that sounds, but I'm obsessed with April Dawn Harder's work. She's on Instagram, and she does the Narcissism Recovery Center. And she's just like pounding out these really intense messages about narcissism and how deeply it's woven into our culture. And it's on the same vein of liberation work. And my sense is that the more we can get a feel for how we position ourselves in the world, not just in the clinical room, but as a business owner, a person making money, a person directing resources, then we're going to make different choices. And they won't be choices that just serve ourselves or just reinforce a system that serves us. It'll be choices that really lead to more community work and to the values that you really hold on a deeper level. So I really recommend her work. Any questions? I know I really laid one on you at the end there. Didn't see
I
that
think
coming.
it's great because I think it's like you're speaking to that arrogance that can come, from us in this work, and that individualized approach, and that
Right.
also competition between us, which
The
is
scarcity
really,
of competition.
really like not my jam. And
Yeah.
I do a lot of collaborative work, as you do, Ariana, just because of that we're all enhanced by connection with others. And I love that you mentioned accountability. I think that's important. Mitzi, I'm going to put the link to the person that I mentioned there.
Thanks. I think I just private messaged it to Stacy. Sorry, Stacy.
That's always the Zoom thing.
Stacy, this I was saying that just for you, of everyone else here. I'm sorry. Yeah, Zoom's weird how they default to the last person who messaged. I've sent so many awkward messages that way.
I mean, we're just still living in Zoom awkwardly after.
Yeah, we are.
I mean, it's just the way it is.
All right. Any questions before we finish up here? Great. So I'll send out a follow-up video of this sometime within the next week. It'll have some of the resources we talked about. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for caring about this kind of work and wanting to make changes, even though it can be uncomfortable, and for donating to really good causes. And thanks especially for Karen for taking the time to write a talk and prepare all the information and share from your many years of wisdom. We really appreciate it.
It was great. It was great to meet new folks and great to see some familiar faces. And thanks for inviting me, Ariana. And thanks for the work you're doing.
Yeah.
The work all of you are doing out there.
Yes. All right, everyone. Have a good Thursday night. Enjoy the weekend.
Nice to meet you all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.